Network events really allows us to be able to socialize with our peers that work across different industries to really provide us with a benchmark to how we are doing, also to get new, fresh, innovative ideas, to find out, how they are addressing different challenges they have, and also to share success stories so that we can also learn and grow from those opportunities.
I get a ton of value from attending the PEX Network events. I really enjoy the interaction that you guys have with customers. It's not a traditional kind of conference where it's just one-way kinds of communication. I really enjoy the bi-directional communication. I always learn a lot. I make a lot of good contacts here, and I hope that I provide a little bit of value along the way too. But it's a great experience for us.
BPE USA is really kind of almost ahead of that next generation of operational excellence. You're anticipating where we need to go, and I'm really happy to be part of that.
Oh, it's always good to benchmark yourself against industry peers and also companies that are not in the same vertical. So we come to PEX, we get to do that. It's also a great opportunity to see what's new in the industry. So even today, and even I went to Orlando last year, there's always some really cool things that come out of it.
Coming to an event here is fantastic to catch up and see what some of the new software vendors are doing in the automation space. Also to hear what some of the clients are now doing.
I think this year's BP USA has that customer centricity pillar, and I'm really excited about that, as you can imagine.
The most value I've got out of BPE USA this year is really the roundtables, having all these different companies sharing their perspectives so openly, so honestly. It just feels like a great forum to learn and share experiences with each other.
And it's fantastic getting all those people together to start to see what we can generate for everyone else who comes to the conference.
Having our opportunity to network with people and telling people about what Kintone does and how we can help in those challenges.
Being able to interact with and talk to many of the people that attend this event, it gives me the ability to walk away with a whole different feel about where the industry stands than what I get from other events.
The difference between process excellence and organizational excellence is, as far as I'm concerned, for process excellence, you really focus on the process. You optimize processes, whatever there is. You can squeeze the last little bit optimization out. While organizational excellence has more to do with people, with leadership, with an excellent leadership, but especially with innovation. You involve the element, or you bring in the element of innovation, which then rolls out as a discipline across the whole organization. So while process excellence is more focused on the actual process and processes, the organizational one is combined with innovation and strong leadership across the whole organization. The next generation of process excellence will definitely bring in much more elements of the crowd, more intelligence from all various areas of the business. It's not just the guys that hold Six Sigma or a Kaizen accreditation, but it's everyone, and it will include customers, it will include partners, the supply chain, employees, and by bringing all of this together and getting inspiration for process and business performance excellence from all these areas, it will literally lift every organization up a level. Q Markets is a software vendor, and we have a suite of products that help companies to measure innovation, and innovation could be measured through process innovation, or it could be disruptive innovation, it could be open innovation. So there are so many tools around that. But specifically for business performance excellence, we're focusing on tools that help you to streamline the processes and include your crowd, your employees first and foremost, but also the other people around the organization in that whole business performance journey. So you take them on a journey, but rather than to have it in an unstructured way, you have it in a very structured way, using a set of tools to do so. The top 3 points for developing an innovation strategy is definitely to look what we as an organization want to achieve. What does innovation mean for us, and what do we want to achieve? Do we want to focus on disruptive innovation? Do we want to focus on process innovation? Do we want to focus on open innovation, all disciplines together, or separately? So to have a clear innovation, a vision for innovation, then to establish a discipline of innovation, a strategy for innovation, and as part of that, a tool is very, very important. And then we establish a culture of innovation. And actually, it's not a sequential process, it's a parallel process where you foster a culture of innovation that leads to a discipline of innovation. And all of this process is carried by a strong and powerful tool such as Q-Markets.
So my opinion, I really see that process excellence is the process or the effort in the whole industry around optimizing the process, mapping a process, going through using a variety of different tools to come up with the optimal process for any type of business process. And then on the operational excellence standpoint, it's my belief that that is then the execution of that process. And so putting it into actual operations. And again, that's where we felt we really fit in nicely with this operational excellence message, where it's mapping an optimal process, but then executing and iterating and constantly improving on that process. So having a tool to be able to do that. So I do think that, as I just mentioned, that there is this evolution of looking at process and mapping it up on a board and putting it into a great mapping tool, but then turning that into an actual operational, executable application that all the team members can have access to, put inputs into, to continually improve that process. So what I see is an evolution of the process and the operations coming together in one sort of flow, if you will. I know it's great sessions today, really engaged participants. It was great. So, I think what we really talked about a lot is, from the digital workplace standpoint, is how you create that digital transformation, how you get buy-in at the top level, but then how do you get the people who are actually operating that new process and operating maybe that new digital technology. And I think one thing is really critical is the idea of starting small, iterating, showing success, and then expanding. So identifying processes in particular departments, usually with an overlap, a couple departments, so you can get that interdepartmental collaboration going. But basically starting with that first process, showing a success to all the stakeholders, to then be able to get buy-in as you keep moving it along and spreading out throughout the organization. So I think the key to getting a real successful digital workplace is start slow with a defined process, very clear, get success in that, and then start expanding and exposing it to the rest of the organization. So Kintone is a rapid application build and deploy platform using no code or low code. And so what Kintone is doing for organizations is empowering the people who know their processes best to build applications, custom applications around those processes. So obviously some oversight of IT, also working with process excellence experts to first define very clearly what that optimal process is, but then the people who are actually implementing the process, actually moving the process along, those operations managers, those are the ones who can actually create the applications in real time. And so they know best what those processes are, what the key aspects, the data fields, and the different processes, notifications, and all the various pieces of the puzzle to make that process efficient. So Kintone is enabling this group of people who want to make their processes better to kind of do it themselves and see the success on an iterative basis. Again, getting back to the iteration. So starting with one process, getting the people who are directly responsible for that process to build the application, and then now have the tool for them to do their very best work. And so it's really creating a more engaged employee base, because they now can do the things to make their job better, easier, more efficient, more productive. And I think that's primarily where Kintone comes into play.
It's interesting, isn't it? That operational excellence seems to be the term that everybody's now using, and it used to be process excellence. And it could be described as just a rebrand, but rebranding is really important. Process tends to make people think of boring, staid, and actually low-level automation. Operational excellence, I think, has a different flavour to it. It's strategic, it's critically important to the way operations work. And what's more important, that it's starting to get the involvement, the engagement of senior people. And I think that's critically important. Process tended to be something which the back office or IT got involved with, and now we're raising it up so that actually it becomes a strategic imperative. And I think that's critically important. Well, having been involved around operational excellence for the last 20 years, I think probably the last 5 years I've seen the greatest changes. And that means it's very hard for companies. Firstly, there's enormous pressure for them to be more customer-centric. The customers are a lot more demanding. Secondly, there is an increased level of regulation, which means that whilst companies are trying to be agile and support their customers, at the same time they need to satisfy those regulatory requirements. You then overlay on top of that the fact that everyone wants to be a new digital business, and there are huge pressures on organisations. And obviously, operational excellence is about how you would redesign that new business. So no longer is it about evolving what you've currently got. In a number of cases, it's a true revolution. Let's take an example. If you think about Uber, which is the go-to example, Uber has completely revolutionised the way that taxis have worked. They've thought about it from technology, but also from the user experience perspective. They've completely reinvented that industry. And that's what's happening in company after company, in industry after industry. And that's really how operational excellence has changed. It's almost taking a whole new perspective on how to run a business from a customer-centric perspective, rather than purely a slight evolution on what we used to do. Every organisation wants to be agile, and I think that's quite difficult with a backdrop of regulation. But clearly companies need to continue to transform and change to support customer needs, to support global competition, but also to support the change in regulation. Now, transformation is not technical. Transformation is about trying to get people, all the employees, and all the subcontractors and all your suppliers to work in a different, but importantly, a consistent way. So what do we need for transformation? Well, first of all, it needs to be strategic. It needs to be top-down, driven by senior management. Secondly, you need to have an understanding about what you want people to do. So that means about process visualization. And only then can you start to think about which of those activities can we automate to improve compliance, to improve efficiency. Too many people rush to automation. Now, the last time I checked in the dictionary, analysis came before automation, and that's the sequence we should be doing it in. Everybody talks about we want to be more customer-centric, we need to improve our customer experience. That's actually critically important, but it's actually very difficult. Yes, you could design a better front office or a better call center process, but you're setting a promise there which the back office needs to deliver. So if you're saying on your call center, absolutely we'll get that product reshipped within 2 days, have you got the back office processes that are capable of doing that? So when you start thinking about this being customer centric, you need to think about the entire end-to-end process. So again, take a strategic view and then only be able to promise what you genuinely can deliver. And so you may take this in stages. But again, it's starting by thinking about the customer journey or the customer experience. Despite my English accent, I actually live out in Silicon Valley, and coming to an event here is fantastic to catch up and see what some of the new software vendors are doing in the automation space. Also to hear what some of the clients are now doing. Silicon Valley has been described as 49 square miles surrounded by reality. I think that's true. We're in a bit of a bubble here, and companies have a huge amount of investment and therefore are able to grow more quickly, adopt new technologies, adopt new approaches. And it's fantastic getting all those people together to start to see in that melting pot what we can generate for everyone else who comes to the conference. It's great coming to conferences and hearing those stories from customers in real life, but actually not everyone has the opportunity to attend those conferences. The portal is a fantastic resource where it's case studies, it's hints and tips, it's experiences from process professionals both in the technology world but also in the customer world. It's a huge resource that you should all tap into.
I think I've been a member of PEX for about 4 years now, and I've always been looking for a community that I could share ideas and exchange what the solutions might be for the challenges that we face in our different companies. And I did some research online, and there's a lot of different companies or organizations to choose from, but for some reason PEX and the mission, and I like the global aspect of it. I like the idea that not only is it United States based, that it's really more global. There was a lot of pull for me to join PEX. So we've been part of PEX, my previous 3 companies. So over the past 4 years, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I've been with 3 different companies. And every time we've been active PEX members. We've been attending the global meeting in Orlando every year, joining the different competitions that you have. We've been a finalist twice for the past 2 years. So maybe this year we'll win, we'll see. But we were just very happy to be part of the PEX community. That question gets asked a lot, and there's a lot of questions around what's the difference between Lean and Six Sigma, process excellence, operational excellence. And I think that question is not as important as what do you do with it, right? So when I look at process excellence and operational excellence, they're both approaches for productivity, and they're both more of a culture change rather than a tool set. And I think they're both very powerful in terms of moving the business and moving the strategy. And I don't really look at it as there's a big difference between those two, aside from maybe a marketing spiel to it. The names might be different, but I think the goals of both process excellence and operational excellence are the same. So I've been on process excellence for more than 15 years now. I used to work for GE, so I was Black Belt certified there. And I could really see the progression from once I first started was really more focused on productivity, cost savings. Then after that, it moved towards more empowerment and employee engagement. It became a collaboration tool. Let's do Kaizen, let's do Lean Six Sigma, because people get to talk, they feel better about their job. And that was a good phase in terms of the operational excellence landscape. Recently, I've really seen more of a progression towards more of innovation and data analytics. And I think that's going to be key. That's going to be key. Now that most of our technology is so advanced and there's so much data to be utilized, I think the key now for operational excellence subject matter experts and leaders is really being able to combine everything throughout those 15 years that I talked about, right? Being able to look at not only productivity but innovation, not only looking at employee engagement but collaboration. You cannot be a one-trick pony when we talk about operational excellence. You got to be a jack of all trades. So I think the key now, what I see in the horizon is, especially with my team, I got operational excellence, process excellence people, my team. I look to them to be more broad in terms of their skill set. Not only project management, but change management. Not only Lean, but Six Sigma. You have to be good at all of this. And that's really where I think the area is going towards. The main challenges for our company, and I think just not for my company, for the financial services industry, any company out there, is, for me, is 2 S's, right? The first one is sustainability, the other one is scalability. And that's always going to be a challenge for process excellence people. And what I mean by scalability is when you start with the operational excellence program, one of the challenges is you can always start small and have quick wins and gain some momentum, but how do you sustain it year over year and how do you scale it across a bigger company. The challenge, again, going back to the two S's, sustainability and scalability, is how do you scale operational excellence across a big company and make sure that you sustain it. And there's a lot of tools about that we can look at. There's things around making sure that you have proper desktop procedures, you have proper process mapping, there's the Kaizen approach, there may many things that you can incorporate, but the big question again is, when you're starting a program, you're starting operational excellence, how do I sustain it and how do I scale it? Those are going to be the challenges. So in financial services, one of the questions around what's good operational excellence is if you can avoid the question of, is this really just for manufacturing? That's what comes up every time, I do a training and they say, oh yeah, I heard about that worked for Toyota, that worked for GE, which I think is just an industrial company, but GE Capital was a big financial services company as well. And I think the hallmark of a good operational excellence program is being able to simplify it and making it resonate across the organization. What I mean by that is we need to be simple in terms of the words that we use. Avoid jargon. The best way to scare people in terms of operational excellence is start talking, all right, I'm gonna Pokeyoki this, I'm gonna use Kanban, and then we're gonna do Gemba walks. You lost them from day one. And so what we try to do is just make sure that if you want to have a good operational excellence program, make sure it resonates by keeping it simple, keeping the concepts very basic. And the other thing is you have to have measurements. At the end of the day, it's all about business impact. And for every program that I started at every company that I work with, it's always started with measurements. What's the baseline and what's the progress? And it's not an easy thing to do. People think, well, measurements, that's easy to collect. But that's one of the disciplines that I think is kind of understated. At the end of the day, for operational excellence or process excellence person, you need to be able to go to your stakeholders and say, this is my baseline, this is where I started, whether it's a defect rate of 50%, cycle time of 4 days, and this is where I am right now, defect rate of 5% and cycle time of 2 days. That's what makes it. The most basic concept around process excellence is you need buy-in from the top. That has to be a given. And I've worked at other companies, I've met other people in other companies, and when we talk about what's successful and what's not, if you have support from the top, and I mean the very top, the CEO, that has to be a given. That's non-negotiable. And sometimes it's easy to get that, sometimes it's not, but you have to work for it. In terms of process excellence, it's a culture change. It's not just a tool set. And in order to drive that culture change, you have to have the buy-in from the top. So you have to work for that. The other thing that I look at, again, I've been doing this for a long time, and I learned it the hard way. When you try to add to your team and build your team in terms of process excellence, most of the time you try to look for skill set. Oh, is this person Black Belt certified? Has he done Lean Six Sigma facilitation and all that? That's important. But what I really learned that's very important is the personality. Again, it all comes back to culture change. You have to look for people that are, I would call likable, the X factor of, is this somebody that somebody would want to talk about their problems? Is this somebody that somebody would trust? Is this somebody that could really drive change and not be afraid of standing up for their principles? So at the end of the day, when you look at process excellence and driving it forward, you have to look for personalities. Since I've been a member for a couple of years now, it's kind of changed throughout the years. When I first started, it was more around learning. There was a lot of best practices that I picked up, and as I started to attend more and more events, it transitioned to more networking. Because I've been here for 15 years, there's still a lot to be learned, but now it's more around how do I get to know other people with other companies, and how do I network and get best practices that way. Now, the most important thing for me around the PEX events is the ability to pause and strategize. When you're in this event, and I try my best not to look at my cell phone, you're really able to reflect on your company's challenges, the year ahead, and then take in what do I need to do around the process excellence effort that we're leading in our company, and really try to strategize. You don't have that at work. When you're at work, you're busy firefighting, calls and meetings, but when you're here, you're really focused about strategy, you're focused about learning, and you're really looking forward, and I think that's very valuable.